Hey everyone, Walter Crosby with Helix Sales Development, your host for Sales and Cigars. So today's episode is, our guest is Michelle Nedelec, and she's from Calgary, Canada. And we're going to chat about marketing, but from an interesting perspective, one that we haven't really talked about on the program, marketing with business automation, but really looking at your marketing and your digital footprint and how you're approaching your engagement with customers and inside and out. So we have silos inside of organization that, our finance people and our sales people, our marketing people and our ops people, they need to be able to share information, talk to each other, make sure that we're not leaving money on the table, and doing a good job, the best job possible for our customers. So that's one of the things that Michelle jumps into. She's got a cool approach to it. It's a free offer that she's given our listeners. So go grab a cigar, cocktail, strap in for another fun episode of Sales and Cigars. Thanks. So Michelle, thanks for taking some time out of the last business day of the year. We're recording this on December 30th to give away a little secret. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
I always talk to marketing people and people that have that sort of bent to leadership, and I'm always curious as to how you define marketing, and you get into business automation, so I want to ask about that. But at a high level, how do you define marketing for somebody that thinks everything is marketing?
Well, marketing to me is making yourself tantalizing to people that don't know about you and potentially aren't even interested in you. So it's kind of being able to walk into the party and have everybody notice, regardless of what kind of conversations they're having. Everything after that can become sales.
In a positive way, right? Because you can walk into a party all...
Ideally.
I like the tantalizing. That's interesting choice of words, and getting people to recognize you, that even when they didn't realize. Is that part of it, just to kind of make people aware?
It is, because a lot of times, if somebody's looking for you, it becomes easier, obviously, to be found. The real entertainment in marketing is, how do you become interesting to people that don't know you and don't realize that they have the problem that you solve, right? You'll notice, especially on Facebook or things like that, where the ads are coming in, it's oftentimes something that you don't know about. I mean, sometimes it's things that you've been talking to your friends with and you're kind of creeped out as to how they know about that and they're getting in there, but that's a totally different conversation. Yeah. But it's being able to bring up those ads that are intriguing and interesting, that people are like, ooh, what is that? And then they click through, and lo and behold, they buy your product. That's the nirvana of marketing.
So, and you have a magic wand that just kind of makes that happen, right? That's
exactly. And a unicorn. I wish.
It's one of those nebulous things that I know you can measure it. I know you can track things with all the data, but from my perspective, I've always looked at it this way. I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong. I'm not trying to be all things to all people. I'm not trying to talk to everybody. There's like a small group of people that are kind of my group.
Yeah.
And that's who I'm talking to. Is that a good approach for the people out there that are listening to this?
It's a fantastic approach. And in fact, in the world of digital marketing, it's essential. The more you can figure out who you are and who your people are and have that conversation in a way that makes sense online is pertinent. So for example, if you had, well, let's take you, for example. So you're going to have a certain audience of people who tend to lean towards cigar smoking, and they enjoy the conversations, and they see it in a certain way, and they feel it in a certain way. That may deter people who don't smoke at all, which is fine. And it may even deter people that prefer pipes. And that's okay too, because if you're selling cigars and not pipes, you really want to delineate yourself and be attractive to those people who want that the cigar experience as opposed to, say, the pipe experience, even though they're very similar. But it does matter in the digital world, and it matters in sales because you're not selling pipe tobacco.
Right. Well, it's the messaging that I've kind of looked at it, repel and attract at the same time.
Yeah,
If you can be really clear about who it is you're talking to, they will self-select out or self-select in if you're of interest and you're tantalizing, to use your words.
absolutely. And it's really important to understand that you become tantalizing to somebody who has an understanding and a conversation ability to be able to connect with you on a certain level. So you are going to be um, repelling to people that that doesn't appeal to them. One, they might not understand the conversation. Two, even if they do, they don't like the conversation. Three, it's just not their thing right now. And all of which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
It's especially in the marketing realm, because you're looking for the people that have kind of a tendency towards being intrigued by what it is that you do. And somebody can be intrigued by you, not necessarily because they want to buy a cigarette so much or a cigar so much as there's just something about you that they find interesting and fascinating. And those people will often talk about you without even buying your product, which is a lot of fun, especially in the digital world. That's when ads become viral. Right? It's not necessarily that everybody that's sharing your ad is wanting to have your thing. It's because there's an interest there that isn't necessarily directly correlated to your product and service, but it's immensely helpful to you because they're sharing it eventually with people who are going to buy the product and service from you.
Yeah, it just helps you get the word out to other people that may or may not be like-minded, and the same messaging just kind of keeps repeating. All right, that's helpful. So let's go. There's two things I want to talk about, and I'll let you choose. Business automation is one of the things that I don't think is understood. I think that's less understood than marketing, and how that works, and then your approach to it with the digital roadmap. So can you kind of go down that path with that?
Absolutely. So the big umbrella is the business automation. And business automation includes everything and anything that has to do with a business. So it's not only your lead generation, it also goes into your operations, it goes into the functioning of the business. So if somebody has an operation, they build things, they have a manufacturing business, right? It tends to be very normal right now to have automation within that kind of a system because, Henry Ford set up the first assembly line, and being able to put machinery into that is very normal nowadays. Mm-hmm. And we tend to think of automation in that realm. The places we don't tend to think of automation is when it comes to how we are connecting with people after they click on our ad. And that becomes the specialty of marketing automation. So it's basically a division of the bigger picture of business automation, because you want to look at not only in marketing, how do you get your clients in, but what we're looking at is how do you create your ideal client's ideal journey all the way from that intrigue moment all the way to helping them become a raving fan of yours. So it's when somebody goes in, they click on your website, they ask for the PDF. Where does that name and number go to? And what is the relationship that you have with them after that point? So a lot of times we'll be helping businesses set up their nurture campaigns after that, because a lot of them think about selling their clients, but they don't necessarily think about the nurturing of people who aren't at the point of being ready to buy yet. How do you treat them, and what kind of information are they looking for, and where do they want to go in that? And then how do you bring them back into, hey, did you know we have these offerings? And you can actually say, hypothetically, order their cigars online. So they go in, they order their cigars online, and when they get the product, it's like, hey, we'd love to hear about your story. If you happen to do a video unveiling, we would love to see how that goes. We'd love to see your natural reaction to that first inhale. If you can videotape that and send that into us, that'd be fantastic. And we'll send you some gifts for doing that. And now you're creating a relationship with the clients. They're taking the video, they're going, oh, this is fantastic. This is exactly the experience I was looking for. They send you that video, you're excited, send them some presents back, and now you've got this relationship. And how do you then automate this process of creating that relationship with them? So it sounds like it's very kind of personal one-on-one manual. But as you start to do things over and over again, you start to realize, hey, there's things that we could do to be able to automate this system. So anytime you've had a conversation 3 times, as my father used to say, once is an accident, twice is a mistake, 3 times is a habit. As soon as it becomes a habit, then you can look at how you might be able to automate it, whether it's writing it in an email, putting it in a PDF, recording it, doing an audio, recording it and doing a video. And then where do you place those? And when do you allow people access to those in order to be able to further that relationship? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I like the analogy to something that people understand with the assembly line and Henry Ford and making of a widget. And you're really applying that to the repeatable aspects of marketing where they need a touch. It does need to have some intelligence to it, right? It does need to be appropriate. And sometimes I see, like, it's almost like they got their artificial intelligence all wanky.
Right.
When I see something out of sequence, or I've interrupted their sequence and they didn't pull it out, is that a sort of an amateurish problem that occurs, or like how do you go about making sure those kind of things don't occur with business automation?
It can be very much a time and effort sort of thing. But what we encourage our clients to do is to step out of their spot of, okay, I want them to know this, that, and the other thing, and step into their prospect's mind and go, oh, okay, if I've never seen a cigar before, what kind of information am I looking for to get this? If I know what a cigar looks like and I'm buying it for somebody else, what kind of things am I going to look for? If I am an aficionado and I want this kind of information, what am I looking for? So you're stepping back into the person's experience in their eyes, because their eyes are going to be totally different than yours, right? You live with it all day. You know your business. You understand the goings on of it in and out. So let me give you a good example. I recently have a financial account online, and I was distracted one day, went to go in and said, do you want to set up your double authentication? I misread it. I said yes. And all of a sudden I'm in double authentication hell. So I wasn't really quite sure what I had done, but I did realize that I just locked myself out of my account. So I went to go back in and go and find everything that I wanted. I'm like, what was it a PIN number? Was it an authentication number? Was it a what? And they had all these different names for these different codes that they wanted as I went back into my account. So I went through their FAQs to try and figure out, kind of just on my own, okay, how do I get back into my account? And it was so high level or so low level that none of it was pertinent to me. It wasn't, how do I get into my account? It's like, oh, here's how you do a trade. No, I don't want to know how to do it. I want to know, how do I get in my account when there's a double authentication? Oh, just enter your code. Well, which code? Was that my authentication or my PIN? So they were going at it from their perspective of, we know what we want from you, but they're not looking at it from my perspective of, I don't know what the difference between a PIN number and an authentication number is. It means nothing to me, but it means something to them. And to me, it's very important that you want to be able to get out everything from your perspective, because eventually it's going to be useful. And then we just want to take a swipe and look at it from their perspective and see, how does it lay out better from their perspective.
So, I mean, that's an important point, is making sure that we're thinking about our customer. Right? I call them a dot. I'm not really sure where I picked that up, but like my dot, my ideal client profile. Mm-hmm. I actually spend about a half hour every week thinking about what they think about and how they think about it, and try to get into their noggin and understand, the troubles that they go through from the perspective of what I do. And it's interesting. The bigger the company, and you look at like you're trying to get information out of them. God forbid you're able to pick up a telephone and talk to a human being, because that would solve a lot of problems. But most of them have that scenario you described, where you go into this endless loop of not getting anywhere. You're just spinning your wheels, and it doesn't matter if you did something to screw up the process, or if you didn't understand, or you're just trying to figure out where you're supposed to go next.
Mhm.
They make it so damn hard. Um,
Right.
and that's you already in there as a customer, but so when we're trying to attract someone and we want them to go down this buyer's journey to, before they're ready, warming them up, nurturing them, whatever that looks like, it really is helpful for us as a marketer, as a salesperson, to be able to understand what is it they're likely to need next, or what would help them understand what we do better. And I'm assuming I'm kind of making an assumption I always get myself in trouble. So I wanted to kind of transition into your digital roadmap as to your process of figuring this out. So our audience are CEOs, entrepreneurs, presidents, senior executives in the sales organization. Um, so what would they get out of that that process that you're going to describe to us? Kind of like want to start there.
Absolutely. So the purpose of the digital adoption roadmap is to help businesses to look at their processes that they have within their business and look at how do we make it more efficient? How do we make it easier? How do we make it more integrated? One of the biggest problems that we find in business in general is that sales, marketing, and finance are usually in silos. So they're having their own conversations, doing their own things, and they're not talking to each other. What we want to do, especially in the digital automation side of things, is bring that communication together. And how we do that is by ensuring that their CRM is client concentric, first off, and that everybody can have access to the information that they need off of the same portal. Or off of the same database. So being able to allow somebody in accounting to be able to access Walter Crosby and go in and know, this is where you're at with your payments. This is where you're at with whatever's going on. They have access to that. But the sales people have access to, oh yeah, I talked to Walter 6 months ago, and they get a reminder that it's time to connect with you again because your membership is due, or whatever. Or you've been with us for 6 months now. Maybe you'd be interested in, a higher end product. And then marketing is going, hey, sales, you've talked to Walter before. What was his initial reaction to coming in? How did he like that? What was, and are we selling the same product from all the way from marketing through to fulfillment? Because a lot of times I've seen this, and I know you've seen this. Marketing is off selling their own thing, and sales is going, you saw what on the website? We what?
Right.
They have no clue
Yep.
what's being promoted, how it's being promoted, what they say is being offered, and they wonder why there's this disconnect with the client. But when you start off, oddly enough, with the right technology in place that allows the departments of your company to speak together, and you as the CEO have this vision of what do you want to create. So to me, we kind of have to back up the bus, is that there's basically 4 stages of business. One is that spaghetti stage where you're throwing stuff up against the wall, trying to figure out what works. And, there's a lot of hope and prayer going on. You have this fantastic idea, but the market's responding in a different way. So you're trying to put out things that they'll respond positively to. Eventually you find that thing, and hopefully, with a little bit of help, you're working on this on a regular basis so that when you figure out what the product is that your audience wants to buy, it's got a nice profit margin to it, you like delivering it, and it's working, then you can let go of all the rest of the things that you've done that aren't working and just hone in on that one journey for your ideal client. In that stage, you have a huge amount of opportunity to be putting into place processes where automation can make the conversations easier for people and get information to the client when they want it. So for example, if you're client wants to talk to you and they always ask the same question about something, it's really, like I said, if you've done it 3 times, record it, put it on a video and say, hey, is this your question? And then at 3 a.m, they don't have to book a meeting with you. They can watch the video, get the answers to the questions, and off they go, and give them kind of the next step. Now that you know this, you're probably like a lot of our prospects and they want to get that and going through to that next step. So when we're looking at a business, we're looking at every aspect of your business, from that initial contact all the way through all of your operations, your business, contract signing, any aspect of it that can be eased so that clients are getting what they want and your employees are doing the fun part of their job, which is that spontaneous, creative, human aspect that computers can't do.
Right. Well, in ciphering all of that, right, your process, that isn't done in 45 minutes, right? That takes a
No.
little bit of effort to get through.
Yeah. So the roadmap is a large one. So we do have quick assessments that people can go through in like 5 minutes and get a little report back. We have blueprints whereby we'll go through and do kind of a VIP day and help somebody to get clarity on their products and services. And then we have the roadmap, which is basically a month-long journey together of figuring out where you're at right now, where your business is now, what's broken, what do you want to fix, what's working really well that you want to keep, and if you could wave that magic wand, what might that look like, and then bring in the resources that we need in order to be able to figure out how do we actually make it happen. Because a lot of people don't realize is that what they think is a magic wand is commonplace. So they're like, what? You can do that? Like, right. Yeah, we do it all the time. You can definitely do that. And being able to expand people's vision of what is possible in business today and feasible. Because some of it is more feasible than what they're doing right now. Right now, they're doing so much manual that it's costing them a lot of money. And if we can streamline that and reutilize their human resources in different arenas, they can actually exceed their 5-year goals in ways that right now they just can't imagine.
So there's some priority too, right? You have to help them figure out you need to do 1 and 2 before you do 3 and 4, just because of the nature of the processes being developed.
Absolutely. You definitely don't want to be automating things that don't have a proven success, because then you're putting a whole lot of money into a system or that it's broken. It's not going to work. It's like people buying software and then it just sits there and it does nothing because nobody knows how to use it or why they want to use it, or they just don't have that need anymore. We don't want you to be in that circumstance. So yes, there's definitely a foundation that has to be built for certain tasks and in situations. Yeah.
So is there an element of, because you talked about silos before, right? And I think even when we can break those silos down and we get marketing and sales and finance and ops to sit in the same room at the same table, they end up having to play nice in the sandbox, right? And their tendency is to kind of kick sand at each other and create agita for each other. But if they really realize that they're trying to pull the wagon in the same direction, I think I could pull another cliche out of there. But if they all work together, the process will be smoother for everyone down the line and up the line. It'll be better for, the customer experience will ultimately be better, which means people will more likely to buy whatever the service or the widget. So is that part of the process, or getting those folks together to kind of start to sort through, like marketing? You can't be selling X when we're talking about Y, and this is what we learned. Just sharing a couple of ideas usually would help, right?
Absolutely, it does. And we start to see it really quickly where we have an initial conversation with the CEO, and then we bring in kind of the highest levels to then engage in that conversation. And oftentimes there will be miscommunication there. And we'll go, oh, okay, something's off. What's going on? And it tends to be pretty easy to find out what the problems are, because, all of your staff understand all have the same objective, is to make the business grow and to succeed, and for them to get better at what they do so that they're having quote unquote fun in their job and moving forward. Now, some people express fun in very different ways. Techies describe it in very different ways. Financial people will describe fun in very different ways, but they really want to get good at their jobs and they want to be effective at their jobs. So when they get frustrated, it's usually because they want something to happen that's not being looked at or considered, and we want to know why. So I'll give you an example of one of the clients we had worked for was a health company down in Florida, and it was a resort, so people would stay for 3 weeks and go through their programs, which was fantastic. The issue was, before we got in there, well, one, they had 180,000 past clients that they had never communicated with after they left the program. So they had been in operations since 1964, and they had all of these clients that they had never remarketed before because all of the clients were in fulfillment. They were in their operations database, not in their marketing database. So we looked at all of their databases and went, wow. So operations has one database, finance had another, sales had another, and there were different facilities on the property that also had different databases.
And none of them were commingled, and they couldn't search. And holy crap! Talk about
right. And I love the look on your face. Anybody listening to this and doesn't get the video, it's like all of a sudden the jaw drops, the cigar falls on the floor. It's like, what?
I mean, it's just like, that's common sense isn't very common, but that's pretty like.
Well, and it's not necessarily common sense-ish because as we all get into, when we're looking at companies will say, oh yes, but I have this proprietary software that's for us. Real estate agent, oh, I have a proprietary software that's just for realtors. Oh, I have this proprietary software that's just for dentists. Oh, I have this. And then we get in there and realize, well, yes, but it doesn't have the functionality that you need to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And that's why the frustration happened, because this software doesn't facilitate the needs of another department. So in this example with this client down in Florida, we put in a system that allowed each one of the departments to be able to identify who is Walter Crosby. The other issue that you get with big companies like that is you may have an email, you may have a personal email, you might have one that you share with your wife or your spouse, or that's open to your kids, and you have one that's a business account, and you have one that you open just because you're getting too much mail at another place. And then we have to look at, okay, well, which one of these is the real, well, the real Walter Crosby, please stand up. And somebody has to go through that. And usually it's sales, because they're talking to somebody going, okay, which would be the best email to send this contract to? So you know what it is. But then you may say, oh, send it to my work one, I'll sign it right now, as opposed to sending it. But can you send the family itinerary to my family account? And then, if you have 6 kids, all 6 of those kids are going to end up on the same email. So they don't really have their own identity in the CRM. And what we want to do is help work with a company to figure out kind of what the best way to be able to process this is, so that when accounting goes in and says, oh yeah, Walter's up to date, the family's been paid, it doesn't have to say that the kids have paid in their accounts, because obviously you're going to pay for the full trip.
Right. You got to segment that information in the right boxes for the right people, for the right reasons. Did I lose you?
Yelling at the dog. He's growling at the neighbors. Sorry.
That's okay. We can take that out.
Let me kick him out then. I'll do that 1 sec.
All right, guys, we'll have to edit this somehow.
He was preoccupied, and I figured he'd stay that way.
Sorry. Okay, that's not the first time. All right, so segmenting those emails and making sure that the right ones are available to the right people is sort of a technology solution, but it also has to have some. You have to have communication, right? Somebody's got to talk to somebody about helping people in the right boxes. I mean, that's
Well, exactly. And so it's basically what we're doing with Roadmap is looking at somebody's entire business and how does it function and what kind of software do you need to be able to create systems that are more effective, that aren't wasting a lot of time and money for your people so that they can spend their time and resources doing things that they want to be doing. And how do we allow that software to grow, knowing that your business is going to change, right? So in this case of this one company, their intention was not only to have their business kind of running the same way as it always had, but they wanted to add different locations. They want to have bigger spaces, which would allow for more clients to be able to stay at their resort. And all of that kind of creates different issues because now you have different people in different buildings doing different things. Who's welcoming the welcoming committee and how do they get access to the right information that they need? The itineraries printing off. And how do you do that, right? Once upon a time, you used to have a little printer underneath the desk shooting off paperwork. And we want to make sure that it's just as efficient as possible with the technology as it exists. And that's just kind of across the board.
Okay. All right. So it's there's layers, there's nuance, but you first take a big picture look, make sure that you have a good lay of the landscape. Where are we trying to go? What the priorities are. And then it's a matter of diving in and working towards swimming in the right direction to help the company take little bites out of these challenges and start solving them.
Exactly. And what we're doing is bringing in a CMO and a CIO for the company so that even if they already have one, it's just to be able to have somebody that has the time and resources to be able to go and do the research. Because oftentimes, even if you have a CIO in the company, they're busy doing the things that they need to do to get that thing done that you're working on right now. And future pacing isn't exactly kind of the priority at this moment. So being able to have us put our resources towards your goals, your dreams, your ambitions of what could, and then bring it back and then have intelligent conversations about the research that we've found on different ways of doing things. So then you still have your trusted CIO in that conversation, and it becomes a kind of higher level meeting of the minds, as opposed to, we've gone and done a research on the websites and the marketing for that site says they do this, but in reality, they don't do this, that, or the other thing that you need to have happen. So it becomes not just a matter of doing the research, but understanding what the problems are and what really needs to be resolved in the end.
Got it. So you're able to help the individual on the leadership team stay focused on the tasks at hand, and you jump ahead one or two steps, do that work, and come back and loop them back in and allow them to make decisions so that we don't lose ground, we don't lose time.
Exactly.
Making progress. So who's your dot? Who's your ideal, like who are we describing here would be a good fit for you? Is there industries? Is there size?
Size tends to be our issue. So companies between 1 and 20 million are our ideal. Less than 1 million, and they tend to still be in that spaghetti phase where they're trying to figure out what's working and what's not. Once they reach 1 million, they usually have a pretty steady path that they're following. And then after 20 million, they tend to get into looking more forward paced at becoming enterprise or selling off to enterprise and becoming a division of somebody else. So that kind of tends to be our sweet spot, is the 1 to 20 million. And when working with those teams to be able to bring our expertise of not only the digital marketing side, but also technology and understanding software build-outs, business build-outs. So I guess it would be pertinent to let you know that my partner in business and pleasures, we like to say, has about 40 years experience working with the likes of IBM, Halliburton, the big guys, to say, okay, we've never done this before. Here's what we want to do. How long is it going to take? What kind of resources do we need? And what's the build out going to look like? And then his job was to basically take these 3-year long programs, build out the software with the team and the servers, the server rooms in some cases, server buildings in some cases, and come on time, on budget. So it was massive projects that he was working on. And basically what we've done is taken all of that knowledge and experience and brought it down to the entrepreneurs that are kind of in the trenches, so to speak. And we want to be able to help them get access to that same kind of knowledge to make their businesses successful.
Awesome. Awesome. So that the best way for people to reach out, and because they're interested in this, the website, is that the best way for them to go grab Michelle?
Yeah, they can absolutely go to awarenessstrategies.com, and there's links there that they can book appointments, discovery calls, to be able to kind of get out whatever it is they're looking for and do some discovery. We also have a gift for your audience, if you'd like.
Okay.
Awesome. They can go to awarenessstrategies.com/website-audit. And there they'll get about a 30 to 50 page report on their website. It'll give you the green lights, red lights, and yellow lights for Google, particularly. Understanding where they're letting the green lights, they're letting your traffic go through. You're doing that right. That's awesome. There will be some red lights that you want to take care of immediately, because that means that Google's not allowing any traffic to go there at all. It usually involves some acronyms like SSLs and DMARCs and all sorts of fun stuff, the tech side of the pages. And then you'll get some yellow lights where Google's slowing your traffic down, and there's certain things that you can do to help speed up the traffic in there and getting more eyes on your pages that already exist. So it takes about 15-20 minutes for the system to scan your site. So it's really easy to set up, and then you wait a few minutes, and then you'll get the report. At the end of that report, you should get a link to book a 30-minute consultation with me, and we'll happy to go over that report with you.
Awesome. So we'll have that in the show notes for everybody. Appreciate that. And it's a worthwhile, no matter how much money you've spent on a website and who's done it for you, the likelihood that there's a problem is greater than one thinks. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on websites, and only to figure out that Google hated them. So,
right.
If Google hates them, you ain't getting any traffic.
All else is moot.
Yes. So, all right. So I'd like to sort of land on my last little question. I'm curious if Michelle has a relationship, past, present, with cigars.
Well, I do have an entertaining story. Is once upon, because I'm Canadian, I got to go to Cuba while there was still an embargo on it. And when we went to Cuba, we got to have the elusive Cuban cigars. I did find out at that point that there are different levels of Cuban cigars.
Yes, there are.
That was rather entertaining too.
The street with the wagon isn't the guy to buy them from.
So. Exactly. Wait, yes, I'm quite a fan of the smells. As a kid, I used to sneak into the cigar stores as my mom was shopping and sneak off, go in there because I was just absolutely intrigued by the smell.
Most people are repelled by the smell. It's interesting that as a kid that it wasn't the weird characters in the store. It was the aroma.
It was the smell. It always intrigued me. It had this complete and total romance of times gone by and guys sitting around in leather chairs, talking shop and business. And yeah, it was always fascinating to me. It was like going into a living storybook.
Well, but there's a certain truth to that. When I travel, I usually find a local cigar shop and go in just for fun. And some of them, they're all different, and some of them attract a particular type of client, just like any other business, where there's like loud and noisy and boisterous and pain in the ass. And then there's like the more cerebral, sitting in the big leather chairs, talking smart, solving the world's problems, right? Where there's more of a academic feel to it. And then everything in between. And I sort of lean towards the ones into the right there where it's a little bit more stage. You can go have a conversation. You can think, where there's not like crazy people yelling and screaming. Maybe it's just I've gotten old, but
Could be that too.
yeah, it could be. So, all right. Well, that's like I'm always intrigued by the cool stories that a young woman, young girl was intrigued by the smell of cigars. Thought that's interesting. So I appreciate the story. Thank you. So we'll have all of your social media and the audit link for our um, listeners to be able to log in and check out their websites. Anything else that we should talk about before we sign off?
Wonderful. Well, and if you're into podcasts, I do have the Business Ownership Podcast. Would love to have your ears on it and let us know what you think about it. All in pursuit of helping entrepreneurs grow their business.
Awesome. All right, Michelle, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.